Welcome back to another episode of the Talking Wolves podcast. The sun is shining here in Wolverhampton. There's smiles on our faces. Wolves have won another game of football, and it looks like our Premier League status for next season is pretty much guaranteed now. My name's Dave Azapadi. Alongside me today, as always, we've got Mr. Jordan Russell, and rejoining the squad for today, we've got Mr. Finn Morris. Finn, we'll start off with you, mate. How you been? Did you make the trip to Portman Road on Saturday?
No, I didn't. In the end, I was a taxi all of Saturday for a hen do. So no sick in the car. There was sick elsewhere, but no sick in the car. It was a successful day in the end. I was dreading it for the football and for that as well in the end. And I'm kind of regretting that I'm not outside right now. Are the other lot sat in a beer garden? Is that why I've got the call up?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think Matt's running from one end of the UK to the other still. I think he's halfway through that as his alternate alias, the Hull Boy at the moment. And I think Joe is... in between jobs at the moment. So I'm sure we'll welcome them back at some point as well. But yeah, Finn, it's good to have you back. And Jord, how you been since the last time I spoke to you? I think it was Wednesday. So we did a cheeky little sort of midweek podcast if anyone didn't catch it. I'm sure a lot of that is still relevant. But how you been since then?
Good. I've not a lot really happened, to be fair, in between Wednesday and Monday. Played some golf as usual, played badly, which as well is not too much of a fucking surprise at the moment. And then we've had a new sofa delivered as of this morning. So we were decorating the living room, taking the old sofa apart. So I've been down Stourbridge Tip every day for the last sort of 4 or 5 days. So it's it's been one of those really, but anything for a quiet life. It looks nice anyway, the new sofa and stuff. That's all I'll say. So
I wonder what the tips are like in Birmingham at the moment, because every time I watch the news, it's just about their binmen strikes or whatever it's going on. So God knows what the tips are like down there at the moment. But
what I will say is, like, COVID, at Stourbridge Tip, there was like a booking system online. It worked really, really well, and they've never got rid of it. So actually, I know Tip, you can literally queue for ages just to even get on there, but at least with Stourbridge, you get a 10-minute slot, you're in and you're out. So it's actually been all right, to be fair. So
I think it's the same in Wolverhampton. Well, I don't know if they've kept it, but during COVID, definitely that was still the case. I mean, what a start to the podcast, talking about the tip.
You can talk about the council tax as well. That was a terrible time for them to put the council tax up for them, wasn't
it? And then the import tax, if you want to bring Donald Trump. No, we'll
mate.
I saw Fogden do a video on that, by the way. Him and his dad talking about the... they did one on Donald Trump and the US tax and all that stuff as well.
Yeah. I've always wanted to think what he thought about it, to be honest with you.
Exactly.
Can't wait to get to that.
I know, but it's a good start to the week anyway, lads. I mentioned this to somebody yesterday. The amount of Wolves tops that I saw out and about yesterday was amazing. I mean, I don't tend to wear one that often. I've got some sort of training gear on today, but when I was driving to the gym, when I was at the gym, when I was driving back, the amount of Wolves tops I saw, which is obviously nice, of course. Everyone's proud to be supporting Wolves once again, I suppose. But Ipswich 1, Wolves 2. A huge win, which, like I said at the start of the podcast, pretty much guarantees our survival now and our place in the Premier League for another season. George, we'll start off with the lineup. Unchanged. I think it had to be. Obviously, with Cunha, who I'm sure we'll talk about his situation for next week. Cunha's still out suspended. You don't change the winning team, do you, George? I think he had to stick with that side.
No, it's what we said for the West Ham game, and it's what... it has to stick true for Ipswich as well. This team are on form at the moment. You never change a winning team, if you ask me. Never should do that. And there's confidence going through that team. There's identity. There's patterns of play, and everyone seems to know what they're doing at the moment. So absolutely do not change it. And it's a bit of that familiarity around it. And again, look, I know we'll probably end up talking about Manetsi again at some point and sort of maybe creativity in wider areas, but the team's functioning, it's working at the minute, so you'd be silly if you asked me to change it. So yeah, it was absolutely the same 11 and the right 11 for me going into that game at Ipswich.
Yeah, again, there was some more debate about Marshall Manetsi on Saturday evening, especially after Vitor Periera had pretty much said that the form that Strand Larsen is in is due to the fact that Marshall Manetsi is in and around him and playing in the squad. So huge credit from the Wolves head coach. Finn, we haven't really had your point of view on this. I mean, Matt doesn't rate him. Joe, I think Joe is a fan of him, isn't he, Jord? Obviously, Gully's been on the podcast and slated him. And again, I like him in this squad. What's your take on Marshall Manetsi's role in this Wolves team at the moment?
Well, the beauty is that I can say that I said all along when Cunha got sent off against Bournemouth, we'd win 3 and draw 1. It's just you didn't have me on the podcast to say it. So. I don't want to sit on the fence, but he's one of those where I don't think he makes you fall in love with football. Like, you've got your Cunha profile, and most people that go to watch football will want to watch players like Cunha, and it's then maybe the more tactical side of things where people are going, oh no, Manetsi allows this. Most people don't pay now at Wolves, 40, 50 quid a ticket for a Category A to try and see the deeper meaning of how his pressing is helping Strand Larsen. However, they're going to go home happy because we've won, as I say, in those 4 games with Cunha there, albeit he stood out. The results really weren't there. So I'm not clever enough tactically to figure out how that's happened and the massive difference he's made. Obviously, everyone will have seen Vitor say it, as you say. He's functional. It's going to be the same debate as when we used to play Dendoncker and not a front 3 in the Nuno days. And I think, as you were saying with the lineup, a few losses or draws with that team, and it's toothless. There's nothing there. There's no flair. There's no blah, 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 blah. But in the run that we're on at the moment, you can say it's really done its job, and it's been the toughest run, albeit against the best teams. These are the ones where we really needed to knuckle down, not be easy to beat, and Manetsi has facilitated that. So I'm warming to him. I've got to say I did agree maybe with the negativity to begin with, but I'm warming to him and what he brings. If cleverer people than me are telling me.
I am sort of glad, Jord, that Vitor made those comments, because I think there were still a lot of people still disagreeing with him in the replies to the post that we put out. I think it was an interview with BBC WM where Mike Taylor had asked about Manetsi's role, and that's what Vitor says. The reason why Strand Larsen starting to score goals is because of Manetsi's role in the team. And I think the minimum I want from a Wolves player is 100%, and I think he gives that and more, doesn't he, Jord, Manetsi? And look, it's probably going to be, we could cut whatever you've said on Wednesday's podcast or the podcast before that, and I'm sure people are going to get the idea. But, I think the very minimum you want is 100%. And when you're losing a player of Cunha's ability in this squad, we haven't really got a player like for like to replace him with. But if you can add a player that will give 110%, and then other players like Strand Larsen and Bellegarde are stepping up as well, I think he's a great player to have starting and in your squad for these sort of games.
100%. And I think I'm glad that Vitor Periera picks a team and not certain people on Twitter, because I think we would be still fighting a relegation battle, to be honest with you. Football can be played in many different ways, different lenses. And again, I'm a big fan of Manetsi, as people would know listening to this podcast. But if you're asking me, I'm spending 50 quid on the weekend, who would I rather see in a team lineup, Cunha or Manetsi? From a technical footballing standpoint, I want to watch Cunha. But Manetsi is, again, a very, very effective footballer. And he's enabling Strand Larsen to get more space. He's very similar, in my opinion. I'm going to mention Souček. I think Decore is another one who's been playing high up with Beto, and all of a sudden Beto looks a better player for Everton. It's just one of those things, really. Football can be played in many different ways, and not every player you got in the squad needs to be technically gifted. I saw a tweet saying, "Oh well, if Manetsi had technical ability of Cunha and could press, that's what we're after." It's like, but if he had that, he would not be playing for Wolverhampton Wanderers. He'd be playing for Real Madrid every week. It's just. I think people get hung up about some of the players who play for Wolves, about their imperfections and what they can't do. Doherty's been a prime example of that for many, many years. Sarabia, physicality, Guedes as well at times. They're at Wolves because they're imperfect. And that's the reason why. And Manetsi, technically, as a footballer, isn't at the level of, say, a Cunha. But he works far harder and is more efficient and probably presses the ball and breaks down play and interceptions and wins the ball back more than probably anyone in our squad since he's been in the team. And I'd put Gomez and Andre into that as well. I think he'd stack up against them when it comes to winning the ball back. And I think Joe put that graphic out right there. I think he's the third in the league, is it? For
counter-pressing, yeah.
Counter-pressing. So, again, football isn't always played with the ball. And I know, again, people have took the piss out of that, saying, well, came up pressing, he's just doing a bleep test. Well, okay, you go and fucking do it then. And you show me how effective you are at just doing it.
Especially after 85 minutes,
Yeah, like it's just honestly, I just find some of the takes so disingenuous. For a player that's come in January, worked his bollocks off. We've been getting better results from him in the team. I don't get that. I just don't get how you can be negative about him in any way, shape, or form.
It'll be interesting because I still think it's fairly early days for him. He's not been at the club, a long time. So I think in terms of he's like sort of settling in and adapting to the club, he's done quite well. I think obviously Agbadou's done the same. And that probably shows sort of how maybe similar the French League and the Premier League are. And we may well see Wolves go shopping there again in the summer because they seem to be quite keen on a number of players that were playing in that division before. But I think the next couple of weeks, or next few weeks, I should say, is going to be a real big test. Firstly, which we will talk about later on, if he starts next Sunday against Spurs, and then you've got a run of 3 fixtures there, Spurs, Manchester United and Leicester. Look, it's great that we've unbeaten in these 4, but I would still on paper probably expect Wolves to be getting points from those 4 games regardless. I think I would have been really, really disappointed if, we lost more than 1 in that running, to be completely truthful. But the next 3, where again I think we could pick up points, especially against Leicester. Manchester United and Spurs are probably going to be looking at Europe in between those fixtures as well. These are the games where if Manetsi is playing a big part of, what can he do in these games? What impact is he going to have? Because against the likes of Spurs and Manchester United, sometimes where on paper they're probably technically a bit better than Wolves, although they haven't shown it enough this season. Can the physicality and the energy of someone like Marshall Manetsi be the difference maker in those sort of games? And I think we'll see that over the next few weeks, definitely. Let's go back to the game itself, though, Finn. Frustrating first half. I said it on Saturday. I think it was awful by Wolves, but it wasn't good. We just really, really struggled to get solid spells on the ball, and obviously conceding the first goal of the game, which I think was probably our only first big mistake of the match, where the ball comes in, 8-0 loses out on the header, and it's quite an easy tapping in the end for Liam Delap. That was quite a frustrating goal to concede overall.
Yeah, it was inevitable. I had the Strand Larsen Delap double for goals as well. I saw it as a 1-1 all day. And both, we'd be happy with the point, and the 2 obvious goal scorers would score. It was very close to that, obviously went in our favour. But the Delap goal, he's a nuisance. He's a pain in the arse as well. I haven't watched him too much, to be fair. I've just seen the goals flashing up on FPL and whatever, and watching him in the flesh, on TV and in the flesh at Molineux. He's certainly a nuisance, and he was inevitable to pop up with something. It's decent tactic to maybe try and hang it on 8-0. You see similar tactics with Trent, etc. at the back post, and even Semedo back in the day as well. It feels like we haven't had one of those for a while, but people would target him there. And yeah, it's a pretty route one goal. And going back to what I was saying before, when I'm saying a few losses with that team, and people start saying things, they definitely left my mouth in that first half. I was saying there's nothing up front. So
yeah,
thankfully that second half happened. But yeah, first half was really, really disappointing. I thought even on the corners we were having a lot of joy. But just like the Totti one, he's got to be doing better with that. So yeah, frustrating first half. But yeah, it's all okay in the end.
Yeah, no. One of the biggest talking points, Jord, of that game was obviously the pass back as well, which I think there'll be a lot of people. I do wonder if there'll be some sort of look at the laws. I mean, it's such a rare occurrence to have a goalkeeper completely miscontrol it and then be penalised for it by saving it off the line. And obviously, because it was on the line, Wolves, if it's within that 6-yard box, Wolves will have an indirect free kick on the 6-yard line. But really, Alex Palmer there is denied a clear goal scoring opportunity. Not even that. He's denied a goal because of his own mistake. Illegally, obviously, stopped the ball from going in the back of the net. Common sense would mean it should be more than just an indirect free kick and no caution for the goalkeeper, George. There, he's completely cocked up. Really, it should be a red card and or something like a penalty for Wolves, shouldn't it? It's a bit of a crap rule, really.
Yeah, but it's not. It's a rule that's been there for a long time. And yeah, it's a crap rule. And I think actually the reason probably why it's not surfaced itself and people have said, oh, actually it is a bit of a crap rule is because it very rarely happens. And if it does happen, It very rarely happens where the ball's literally about to go in the back of the net when a goalkeeper stopped it, touched it. So, yeah, I think... Thing is, though, I understand it's denying a goal scoring opportunity. It's denying a goal, right? But do you want to see goalkeepers sent off for stuff like that? I'm not sure. It's a mistake and it's trying to rectify. I think it should be given as a goal itself. if the ball's going between the posts, you just go, well, it's a goal. Like in rugby, you have a penalty try and all this sort of stuff. Like, I think you can quite clearly say, look, it's a goal, move on from it, sort of thing. Or you just, like you say, thing is with a penalty, they can still save a penalty. I almost feel like you've got to be awarded the goal for something like that. Not necessarily the red card. What I was sort of a little bit perplexed by was the indirect free kick being on the 6-yard box. It's so difficult for someone to touch it, roll it, and because they're just going to come out and close you down very quickly. I think it needed like a brave head or someone from the sideline just to get the players over and go, no one touch it, just someone hit it as hard and low as you possibly can, and just if it gets a nick off an Ipswich Town player or the goalkeeper, it's all of a sudden not indirect then because they've touched the 8 count. So they're not going to be able to get out of the way if you're smacking a ball at them from 6 yards. So you're bound to nick someone unless they like graze their arm or going off their arse or something, and it's a goal. But I think again that's just the naivety of the situation because you don't really see that situation happen much in football where no one knows really what to do. I think it just needed a calm head or someone just to go, lads, just smack it straight at, just smack it at a blue player and just it should go in or take the head off, one of the two.
Yeah, I don't think it's something that you particularly train day in, day out on the training ground, is it? And it may not be something that we see watching Wolves for another 8 years or so. Like you said, it's such a rare occurrence. I just think it was frustrating the way, obviously, the way that the law is, but obviously the like you said there, the indirect free kick within 6 yards, it doesn't really give Wolves much of an advantage. It's a really, really difficult one to operate. But yeah, I think the only other way you could maybe do it is if you basically flick it onto the edge of the box and then just so you got a bit more room to maybe get the shot away. I don't know, but it's such a difficult one. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter now. We came back and obviously won the game. Finn, the second half was a much better performance. Wolves looked better, a lot more energetic, looked like they wanted it more in the end. And interestingly, it was the substitutes that changed the game. Vitor changed the shape as well. We went with a back four for the last sort of 25 minutes or so, with Pablo Sarabia and Rodrigo Gomez coming on. Sarabia is such a talking point whenever he produces, Finn, because we probably haven't seen this enough from him. You know, we've seen him have cameos, and like I think I mentioned on previous videos or previous podcasts, he's actually a player that Vitor obviously likes because he's played pretty much in every single game under Vitor.
Yeah, that
Periera.
amazed me when you said that. That was great. I would never have said anything like that.
I said it, I did a podcast with Ryan Lester yesterday, and I asked him, I said, how many games do you reckon he's played percentage-wise? And he goes, about 25, 30%. I said, no, he's played every single one. The only one that, again, I said this yesterday, I can't remember if he came on against West Ham or not. I should have probably checked it. I'll check that in a second, actually, just so I can back the fact up. But, you know, he's obviously a player that Vitor likes. I don't think he'll be here beyond this summer, if I'm completely honest. But I think we all know at times he's got the quality, and he had the quality on Saturday. It ultimately proved to be the difference because he got the goal and got the assist as well. Yeah,
and when I said these last few games are sort of the ones where it's like, right, dig deep, get the result, get out, do it as ugly as you can. If Sarabia's in the starting lineup or comes on, the tendency is to sort of go, oh, we ain't going to fancy this. It's not like in Spain, he's going to get muscled off the ball, blah, blah, blah. But it's been the same thing. We've probably had, as you said with Jord before, you can probably cut and paste 20 chats about Sarabia, and they all apply the same, that when he's got the ball at his feet and there's no one near him, he can produce magic. And when that first goal went in, you flash back, you think, hang on, he scored 20-odd goals in a season for Sporting Lisbon. And he can be prolific if he's in that sort of space. And I think that's why he will go back to Spain or wherever to maybe have a little bit more time on the ball and suit him more. But for the few contributions he's had, a lot of them have been very important, very special. That Spurs goal will forever be. Wow. It's up there with one of my faves. I absolutely love it. And I would argue that his current haircut gave him the confidence to do that at the weekend, and I moved my slot for him last minute.
Oh, did
so
you?
I'm taking credit for it. Yeah, I got moved on the day. I had my haircut cancelled because Sarabia wanted to fit in. So I'm expecting a signed shirt from the game afterwards. So you're welcome, everybody. But no, much more improved. I think Gomez and Andre as well, to be fair, they really stepped it up second half, which was a big change. Yeah, obviously the change up. I've just checked. Sarabia did play in that West Ham game, so my stat still stands. So yeah, but for Jord, it shows, you know, like he's an important player. But I think for Wolves, unfortunately, he's just a bit of a luxury player, isn't he? He's on,
we're probably going to be seeing Cunha, more than likely Semedo and Sarabia will move on, probably our three highest earners. So it is a shame, but like Finn said, the moments he's produced have been magic and they've been big moments, but we just haven't seen it enough from him in a Wolves shirt, have we?
No, and again, I've always been high on him, but I just think, I think he would be a better player in a team that had more of the ball and played that way.
Agreed.
So if you started him in at Brighton, just throwing a team out there, I think he'd look a different player altogether. I think when you're playing counter-attacking football, because he's not got the most pace about him, he's not that physical, not that strong, but what he does have is he's got a wonderful left foot. He's got unbelievable quality, and he picks out real nice pockets of space as well, I think, in and out of possession. I think it was his class and composure for both of the goals, I think, really, on the weekend. I mean, his finish was great, to be honest with you. Yeah. Like, he could have snatched to that. A lot of players would have snatched on that on the pitch, and he sort of bided his time, waited for the ball to drop a little bit more, slotted in the corner. And the ball for Strand Larsen as well was just on a plate, really. So he has got that quality. And, yeah, I say we're all pretty sure he's going to move on, where we think he's the second highest earner after Cunha. I think or at least him and Semedo are very close together. So, yeah, look, he'll be a miss for me for the moments he produces, but I actually think for the amount of money he's on per week, we need a player playing every minute of every game for us, and Sarabi's never going to do that. So it's probably time to move on.
It will be interesting because I think that will be probably underestimated by some people, the amount of money that are going into these sort of 2 or 3 players that will help us fund different transfers. I know they're more than likely, well, in Semedo and Sarabia's case, leaving on free transfers, but you all of a sudden free up close to £200,000 a week in terms of wage budget. That's big for potential signings as well. The winning goal, though, Finn, like Jord said, is a great ball in by Sarabia. A bit of an unorthodox finish by Jorgen, who just threw his body at it in the end. The thing that frustrates me about this goal is VAR. I think there were VAR checks for all 3 goals, but that one, which turned out to be the winning goal, I just felt like there was a great reaction from the players, and obviously we'll talk about Andre and stuff in a second, but I just felt from the fans' point of view, I think if I was there, it was so close because they were checking the Sarabia when Sarabia got the ball, and they were checking where Jorgen was when the ball was played. It just killed the momentum a little bit. And for me, if I was in that ground, I would be like, I wouldn't really know how to celebrate and so on, if you get what I mean. So I think that killed it a little bit for me. I don't know if you would be the same. Because, I mean, we've seen it the last couple of years, haven't we, in general?
Yeah, well, we were both at home, weren't we? And to me, watching it live from the TV camera angle, I thought it was offside. So I was a little bit subdued in the celebrations. Part of me obviously wanted to get involved with how good the celebrations were. But I was quite subdued. I thought, I can't see how that's onside. And I was shocked when it flashed up with that very slight green line at the very end of that wait. The semi-autos come in as of the Spurs game, don't they?
Yeah, next week,
the game after? Yeah. And obviously we saw how that went the first time. But in theory, when they are working, unlike in the Cup, then hopefully that will lose those weights. And it is amazing how, albeit it was close, we've had, how many seasons is it now? 4 or 5 seasons of drawing lines, and it still takes them that long. I think everyone gave them the leeway in the first season, maybe second, and patience has worn off. And yeah, being in that ground, I'd have a much different opinion, I think, because we could see everything, albeit not the lines being drawn anymore. But I thought it was offside. I can't remember, what was the Delap goal? Was that an offside check?
Yeah, I think they checked when he won the header if Delap was offside.
Yeah,
it was pretty clear.
It's a different experience, and it just shows how it's way more being catered to the TV audience now. That I didn't feel massively in the dark, but in that ground, it was a long old time. And credit to the Wolves fans for singing for both sides. If it was going for or against us again, they were voicing their opinion. You could hear it loud and clear on the broadcast.
Yeah, I think VAR has been in control now because unfortunately I had the misfortune of seeing that 6 years ago today was the FA Cup semi-final, obviously at Wembley. So, and there was VAR in that. So it's been there over 6 years. But I can't remember if that was in the Premier League the same season or if they introduced it the following season.
That was our first season. It wasn't in the first season of the Prem because there was like the hand of Bolly and the...
Yeah, it was a second. So it was a second season.
Were they trialling it in the Cup maybe? Yeah.
Possibly, yeah. Oh yeah. So you're right. Yeah. So yeah, probably trial in the cup, and then it would have been the following season. So it's been close to 6 years anyway since it's been introduced in the Premier League. But 6 years of pain and torture. But Jord, the scenes at the end, like I said, it was a little bit unfortunate, but I think you could tell the atmosphere was brilliant from that away end in the end. And obviously Andre grabbing the phone as well, which has been literally the picture and the video of the weekend. But it's moments like that, isn't it, that we'll look back on in like 2-3 years time, especially if we manage to keep hold of players like this. And they're just special moments, and it's just great to see the players showing that sort of enjoyment and passion again that we haven't really seen enough of. Especially when Gary O'Neill was still in charge at the start of the season.
Yeah, it does feel very reminiscent for me of when Lopetegui coming in January, where it's just two versions of a squad within one season, and the squad up to and Gary O'Neill leaving, I hated majority of them. I hated everything about the football club. And people listening to this podcast would have known that. I'm quite a happy person, but the club were literally making me a miserable bastard most weeks. So I'm just so happy that it feels like we're getting the club back. We've got a manager who wants to be here, gives a shit, gets it, wants to be involved within the community. You got players now that are also buying into that ethos as well, who again at least appear on the pitch to want it, care, fighting for each other. It's amazing what a changing manager can do for a playing squad that was so bereft of confidence, in a way of, like we said on Wednesday, Dave, there's only been 3 signings added to this team from Gary O'Neill's at the start of the season, and one of them's not even really kicking a ball for us still yet. So you'd only say Manetsi and Agbadou have been added to it, and we're winning games, we're dominating midfield, Strand Larsen's back scoring goals again. It just feels really, really good. And I think actually the form table from when Vitor's took over would be 8th or 9th now if you'd have started the Premier League season from then. So, and again, you would sort of say he's punching above his weight a little bit, but actually there's enough quality in this squad that we should be in and around, I think, that sort of mid-table, anywhere between 8th to 14th. I think Wolves can finish, and I'd put us in that bracket with Brentford, Palace, Fulham, a few others as well. To be honest, Bournemouth would be another one to throw in there as well. That we're all going to probably fluctuate, and that's where I think we are as a club at the moment. We just had a real poor season, or start of the season, should I say. Let's be honest, we had a management structure in place which was not fit for purpose and should have gone a long time ago. And Vitor's come in really in a bad scenario, a bad situation, and probably got a little bit more out of the squad than what I would say the average manager would get, but definitely by just picking up points where we'd expect to pick up points, we've left those 3 behind us. And it's what we've been saying on this podcast for a very long time, that no matter how bad it got, we're far better than those 3 teams that we were competing with to stay up in this league. And it was just a matter of time before we started pulling away. And I mean, I thought we were definitely safe regardless if Ipswich beat us on the weekend, but now we are definitely safe, and we should be looking higher up the table now, because if we go and beat Spurs on the weekend, no saying we can't finish 14th, 15th out of nowhere.
If you look at the remaining fixtures of all the teams around us, there's every chance that Wolves can climb up a couple of places. I mentioned earlier the next 3, where we've got Spurs, Manchester United and Leicester. There's a world where we could maybe only get 3 points out of that, but there's also a world where we could easily get 9 points out of that, because United, like I said earlier, United and Spurs will be focusing on Europe, because that ultimately is their best chance of staying in Europe for next season as well. And then Leicester are just out of sorts at the moment as well. So there is a chance where I think I saw somebody very quickly before this video, he was predicting, with the remaining games left, predicting the second half, what the bottom half is going to look like. And he had Wolves with the remaining fixtures up at 15th or 14th. And that was just based off picking, I think they're going to win this game, they're going to win this game. So there's every chance, I think, we climb up the table as well. But going back to what you said, I think we are in the same sort of category as those teams. But in terms of quality, player for player, at the start of the season, there'll be a lot of people listening to this podcast thinking, we've got a solid squad here. And individually, we've got some very, very good footballers. And that's why around the Christmas time, before Vitor came in, I just looked at the squad and I felt, what's going wrong? Because these are very, very good footballers on paper. And I think ultimately what's going on, I wouldn't put us far away from the likes of Forest in terms of player for player quality, or the likes of Bournemouth or Brighton, who have had good seasons. But what Vitor's coming and done is get the basics right. It's just, changed a lot of things. The regimes behind the scenes have changed as well. Just doing things probably the normal way and the more straightforward way. I think Gary O'Neill is obviously a good football coach, but I think he was just overthinking and overanalyzing everything. And at that stage of the season where we're struggling, you can't afford to do that. You need to, just get the basics right. And we saw with the set pieces and so on, it just wasn't happening for him at Wolves. So it's just nice to have that feel-good factor back again. Someone that understands how to see out football matches and win football matches. And Finn, someone who likes a drink as well. I mean, I don't know if you saw his tour on Saturday. He did a bit of a Wolves pub crawl, I think. We saw Weatherspoons, the Gifford, unconfirmed reports of Potworld, and possibly even Cinderella's I saw today. I don't know if someone's on the wind up there, but, who knows? But it's just nice to have someone that all of a sudden is very passionate and an assistant to go with him as well. I mean, on Wednesday you saw it. I've never seen an assistant manager get so hyperactive on the touchline as well.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, this hen do I was picking up from was in Birmingham. I did say, did you fancy going over to Wolverhampton? I can nip for one and then pick you up. But no, yeah, I haven't seen. So did he end up? I saw him in Weatherspoons, but I didn't see anything else.
So Weatherspoons and then the Gifford. Someone then messaged, posted and replied to me saying he was in Potworld, but he was like refusing any pictures, which I sort of is weird because surely someone took one of him from a distance. And that's not that. Yeah. So, and then someone again said the old shout of Cinderella's, but I'm sure that's got to be a wind up. I don't think he'd be that daft, would he? So,
yeah, he's doing everything right, isn't he? I think that side of things, and yeah, the passion on Wednesday. It really, I got to say, I've faded this season. Same with Jord. The sort of even with under Vitor as well, like that Bournemouth game really tested me. As I think you guys said on the podcast, a normal team gets knocked out the cup. Wolves get knocked out the cup, 120 minutes. Miss a potential winning penalty and lose their best player for 4 games. Like, it really tested me after the season of, as you're saying, having quality players on paper and managing to mess everything up. But I'm really coming around to him now. I think it's a bit anxious. He had so many clubs. He'd been in more clubs than bloody Bonatini. So I was very anxious and I thought, are we just going to be another one where it's another 6-month period? But he's really proving me wrong. He's Portuguese with a grey beard and 5 at the back. So I'm trying to see my idol in him, and hopefully we'll get to that level as well.
Yeah, no, it's a nice feeling. When he said it on the Saturday after the game, he says, "I'm going to go out for a drink tonight with the fans." I thought, mate, you've got a long journey ahead of you, man. You're not going to be back. And then I saw him in Weatherspoons. I thought, fair play. He just likes the Blue Lagoon pictures, mate. That's all it is. I do wonder what his tipple of choice is, to be fair. I think he's a lager man, so I do wonder what he tends to go for. But it was a massive, massive win for Wolves in the end. 2-1 win at Portman Road, which, like we said, pretty much guarantees our safety now. And now we look to Sunday, which is another intriguing game. Tottenham at home, Sunday afternoon kickoff. Not on TV. It's been moved, obviously, due to Tottenham in European action. But, Jord, like I said, this fixture for them is in between 2 European games for Spurs. I think on Thursday, if it's a pretty close game between them and Frankfurt, we may see some rotation, or we just might see their heads sort of focusing on the following game. I think this is actually quite a good time to play Spurs. Obviously, they beat Southampton on yesterday to confirm, obviously, the Saints relegation. But, I mean, Spurs have been poor, and I'm sort of hoping that, like I just said, this game is coming at the right time, really.
Yeah, they're a car crash. I mean, take out what's happened at Southampton, because I think there's pub teams in the Kidderminster League that beat Southampton at the minute. They're really going at Levy and the ownership again, and the ownership model at Tottenham. They all hate Ange Postecoglou. He's cupping his ears for disallowed goals to the fans and then saying, "No, I just wanted to hear them." Like, again, don't bullshit anyone, mate. And then they're just a mess. And there is a world where Eintracht Frankfurt batter them on Thursday, and then they're going to take them to the new White Hart Lane, or whatever it's called, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and they're going to have to try and turn over a deficit, is what I think might happen. And yeah, they rotated a few on the weekend for the game on Thursday, but whether Tottenham come 10th now, or 17th or 16th, if he wins the Europa League, That's all they care about right now, and rightly so, by the way. Like, the season's over for them, like in the Premier League. So I think there's a world where we Spurs rock up on Sunday, and don't be surprised to see, Ben Davies and some of the fringe players, Richarlison, all these sort of players that will end up starting just because they've got a big game on the following Thursday as well. So it probably falls at a nice time for us to go and beat them. And actually, the way we're playing at the moment as well, you just fancy us to go and beat them anyway. Like the form we're in as well.
We tend to give them a good game regardless, don't we? To be honest. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's just going to be a very weakened Tottenham team. And it might be a weird game because I can imagine that for Vitor and the team this week, it's going to be so hard to predict actually what sort of Tottenham team they're going to be playing up against personnel-wise that it might make it a bit difficult. So it might be a bit of a slow, cagey chess match to start off for the first 20, 25 minutes or so. But I do think it'll then grow into being quite an entertaining football game because, let's be honest, both teams have got nothing to lose now, really. So I think it should, touch wood, or could be like a bit of a classic, I think. Could be, high scoring, 3-2, 4-2 game.
It'd be interesting. Obviously, we saw the fixture at Molineux last season was the one that you alluded to, Finn, earlier, with Sarabia scoring the late goal and Lamina's winner. But, we do have some good games against them. And against that high line, I am interested because that could be all over the place. I think if we start well, that'll play perfectly into our hands. But Finn, I suppose the $1 million question going into this game is, do you go unchanged? Obviously, Matheus Cunha is back and available. I'm pretty sure I know what Jord's answer is going to be. But for you, I saw someone else mention, yes, we're unbeaten since Cunha's been suspended, but ultimately, and sort of like I mentioned earlier, there were probably games you would be expecting to get points out of. He is, on paper, our best footballer. But for you, like I've said, we are 4 unbeaten. Does he come straight back into the team for you for this game against Spurs?
I should have really prepped an answer for this one. I really... we said before you can't change a winning team. Obviously, that was when Cunha wasn't there to be added in. I do worry when you say, no, can we take advantage of the high line? There aren't many runners in behind in that winning team. So whether you get much of an advantage there, I don't know. You got Bellegarde, maybe that's it. Maybe Semedo and Aït-Nouri, if you're really pushing it. The rest of the season now is pretty much just prep for next season. I think I want to see more of Rodrigo Gomez before I want to see more of Cunha. I want to see more of Pedro Lima if Semedo's off as well. However, you can't not. Can you not start him? He's class. Again, we're playing for nothing. They're playing for nothing. Okay,
so if I rephrase the question, who would you drop? If you were to put Matheus Cunha back in, who are you dropping? Manetsi or Bellegarde? So they're the two that whose places are up for grabs, really.
They both don't deserve. This is it. I think I'm not outraged at anyone's answer, and I know on Twitter you've got to pick a side and stick to it, and it's 100% and 0%. I'm so 50-50 on it. I think if I had to drop one of them, I think I'd drop Manetsi. Yeah, and then I think it'd fall apart, and you'd see why we maybe why he's maybe starting if he didn't then start the Tottenham game. Jord, are you passionately one way by any chance?
I just don't think you can. I don't think there's any world where you can play him from the start.
If you hadn't done the Guardian article, would you be more likely to start him? Because it still feels like he wants to be at maybe 2%, not 0.
But he's just telling lies. You don't want to be here. We all know you don't want to be here. He's just playing up to the crowd.
I think you start unchanged, and then you see around either half time if we're struggling or 60 minutes, and you maybe give him the opportunity. Because for me, I would hope that will give Cunha in his head thinking, shit, I need to come on now and prove myself that I'm not to these Wolves fans, but also prove to the rest of the world why I deserve to be playing at the top level. But I don't think you can start him just based on the last 4 games. I think it'd be so unfair to anybody in that team to be dropped just to reintroduce Matheus Cunha straight away.
I'd be really pissed off and disappointed if he starts. and I don't think Vitor will do that either. Because, again, we spoke about it on the Wednesday pod. Like Vitor Pereiro's Cunha, absolutely nothing. He didn't buy him. He's pretty much made out he didn't want to be here, so he can start planning for the squad and the players that want to be here and are going to be in his squad next year. We're safe. We've got nothing to play for now. He doesn't know Matheus Cunha anything at all. And this isn't me saying, Cunha's an unbelievable footballer. Cunha will go on and have a great career post Wolverhampton Wanderers. I've no doubt about that. And, don't take this as me just saying, well, just being a Cunha hater. And I'm definitely not. I think how he's acted over the last few months has been awful and disingenuous, and he's been a bit of a prick, if I'm honest with you. It doesn't take away he's still probably our best footballer in the squad. But I just think it sends out such a bad, poor message to the rest of the squad that's been harmonious over these last 4 games that he's back from suspension, he just walks straight in. I think for some, if he does then drop Bellegarde or Manetsi, who are the two that would come out for him, what message does that send to them? Yeah. Like they've been working the bollocks off, been an integral part of the form since he's been suspended, and then it just comes out of it. And I do get the flip of it, again, that he's our best player and should play your best 11, or people out there will want to play your best 11, and I'm usually an advocate of that. But I just think in this scenario where we know there's no world really that Cunha stays after this summer, what's the point? Like I just don't think he needs to start. Yeah. And I just wouldn't start him.
I just think, like you said, there needs to be some sort of loyalty to the players that have practically, in the last few games, done the business for us. Cunha left us in a very difficult situation, and then suspended. Then he did the article just over a week ago as well, when there was still football there to be played. I think he's put us in a difficult situation, and like you said, Manetsi and Bellegarde are probably the 2 main players that would be in the firing line if he was to come back in the team. I think it'd be very, very harsh on them to drop out.
And then to add to that, sorry, Dave, I was going to say, to add to that, after his cameo on the weekend as well, then you're saying that, where does Sarabia come into this? So if Sarabia was to come off the bench for one of them 2, like you're saying that Cunha jumps ahead of Sarabia. And again, Sarabia, again, probably isn't likely here in the summer, but he's got a goal and an assist literally on the weekend. So it's so difficult. But I've got a question for you guys, devil's advocate here. Out of the last 4 games, if Cunha was fit, how many points do we pick out? Do we still pick 10 points up?
Well, that's what I was saying earlier, because I think on paper I would have been disappointed if we weren't getting points from those games anyway.
Yeah,
I think there were certain situations in those matches where we could have done with more energy going forward. Like Finn said earlier, I think Cunha has got that turn of pace, can drive with the ball. It's very difficult to get off the ball. And that's why, annoyingly, I think he would be a good fit in that Spurs game. But that's why I think if we start well early, they're going to be playing over high line for the majority of that football match. So, but yes, he's a quality footballer, but I just think those players have given their all. Ultimately, they've not really put a foot wrong over the last 3 games, especially. They deserve a chance to go again against Spurs, regardless of the level of opposition. I think they still deserve that opportunity. I do think Vitor has got a strong enough backbone from everything we know about him to not be swayed by outside noise or even what he thinks people want him to do. I genuinely think I think he'll know already whether Cunha's starting on the weekend or not. And he's I think he knows that. And the players might not know that, and the press and everyone else probably won't know that until 12:45 on Sunday. But I think he's strong-minded. I think he'll have his own opinion on it, and he's probably shared that internally with coaches, Matt Hobbs, even maybe. But no, this is what I'm doing. This is how I see it. And if Cunha starts, fine, get behind him, and hopefully he goes and gets a hat-trick, and that's fine. But for me, I just don't. I think it'd be real poor form if he starts on the weekend. Does that make your decision any easier, Finn, or not?
I've just been thinking about what I was saying, and thinking about those when you're saying about those counter-pressing stats as well. Manetsi could absolutely clean up, and that could create some real opportunities there as well.
We've got him on the Manetsi bus now, Jord, as well.
I don't know. I'm really really, really stuck. And at the end of the day, it's football, and we're all going to die one day. I don't know why I'm really, really having this mental anguish over who I'd start. It's going to be fine either way, unless it's 0-0. We bring Cunha on, he scores and runs down to SL1 and cups his ear at you, Dave. Nothing's going to kick off either way, is it really? So I am tempted by the 60-minute sub. I think there's going to be outrage either way. There's outrage either way. Yeah, it's football. I'm going to stop stressing so much. Just put a year on my life, this podcast.
I think, I know we said it's either Manetsi or Bellegarde, but let's be honest, after the comments about Manetsi and what, Vitor seems to think of Manetsi, it's Bellegarde, isn't it?
I agree.
I know people on Twitter, certain people on Twitter would be like, well, yeah, Cunha for Manetsi. And again, yeah, Cunha's a far better technical footballer than Manetsi, but like Vitor Periera's picking the team.
You just have to look at the last two games, Jord, though. You just have to look at the last two games. When he wants a more advanced substitution, he takes off Bellegarde. He's kept Manetsi on the last two games. Wrong. But I think also that he knows Manetsi can last the full 90 minutes. Not that Bellegarde can't, but Manetsi, you saw the 85th, 90th minute against West Ham, he had that energy. And the comments he made, I don't think he would make those comments if he didn't rate Manetsi, which because he's playing, he obviously does. But it's I do agree. I think if there's going to be someone that drops out, it's Bellegarde. But I feel that's bad on him because he got Player of the Month last month, or March nominee for Premier League Player of the Month. So he's had an impact. So it's
there's not even a. At the start of the season, I remember, especially the Chelsea game, I know we got battered, but I thought Cunha and Strand Larsen linked up so well. There was 3 or 4 occasions where they seemed completely on the same wavelength. And then after that, one of them was retuned. I don't know which one, but I can't say there's really that relationship there that we're at least going to gain if he starts. They don't really seem to play that well together. So, yeah, I'm struggling here either way.
No, well, I'm sure people listening will let us know their thoughts as well. But we'll have the full Spurs preview later on in the week. You can let us know maybe if you've made your mind up towards Thursday, Friday this week as well. Lads, we'll end off the show for just under 10 minutes or so with some questions. There are quite a few, to be fair. So thanks to everyone that sent them in. Sam Beacon, is this the most connected you felt to a squad since the Nuno era? So it's amazing what a few wins can do. And I think it's hard not to get a little bit carried away. But Jord, you can definitely see, we've mentioned it a couple of times over the last week or so, that there's definitely a connection. And Vitor, on a personal level, seems a lot more, I don't know, I think you can connect with him and his staff a lot more than what we have been able to with Gary O'Neill and Lopetegui and so on. I think it helps that Vitor's, showing his face around the city as well.
Yeah, I think he's dangerously getting close already to Nuno 2.0, really, with everything that's going on at the moment. I think the big thing for me is, the vibes are there. It's all going well at the moment. It's when shit hits the fan, because it's Wolverhampton Wanderers shit does hit the fan at some point.
We ain't going to carry on winning every single game.
No. That he actually, he's still keeping up appearances and still being the same Vitor Periera as he has been in the last few weeks, really, when it comes to press conferences and stuff. I think the big thing for me, and the biggest thing really for the end of the season, is momentum, because we need momentum going into next season, because we've seen what happens when we tail off in seasons. It's a hangover, drags on, and we start off seasons slowly. I really hope, if he can keep the momentum going, we have a solidish end of the season, gets a bit of backing, and then we start off next season strong. There's no, and again, this sounds mad, but I think it would sound mad if you said Forest would come third at the end of the season, at the beginning of this one. But I do see a world where momentum goes and we're in and around sort of the European spots in terms of the Europa League, Conference League spots with the momentum. And if that happens, I think he very much would be taken over from Nuno in terms of people's hearts.
You've got to hope that, this season, if we can continue strong, and I think it's so key that we, keep the passports in the drawer and the players do not go on their holiday between now and the end of the campaign. I think it will be so interesting to see, and hopefully it is the case, that we had such a negative momentum at the end of last season when Gary O'Neill couldn't buy a win, and that carried on to the start of this season, that hopefully we have a positive momentum between now and the end of the season, and we can carry that on to the next campaign. Like you've seen with Forest, obviously Forest finished 17th last season, and they're about to get back into European football for the first time in how long? So it'd be I'm really hoping that we can continue that momentum in a positive way between now and the end of the season.
Bruno Lage had you more though. Yeah,
Bruno
peak Bruno Lage. When we were like 4th and you were posting that GIF every week of him kissing at Old Trafford, he had you more than Vitor ever has.
Bruno was boring though, wasn't he? Bruno was. There was
Yeah,
something
we were
about
like
Bruno.
4th, and I don't know. I think maybe they slightly edge it. That
But what
we
I'm
were
saying
4th,
is,
5th
with Bruno, he had the exact same thing that happened to Gary O'Neill. Like season by season, they both actually started off quite well, and you get to sort of the January-February period, and they're within touching distance of Europe, and both fall off a cliff. And then you go
and
into
we're trying to be
season.
positive here, but what's probably going to happen next year as well in the life of a Wolverhampton Wanderers fan?
Well,
it's gonna...
yeah, of course. But so what I'm saying is that Bruno Lage and Gary O'Neill both started off and could not get any momentum back, whereas now it almost feels like it's the opposite. I cannot remember the last time Wolves had a really strong end to a season. It's been a long, long time because Lopetegui didn't have it, Gary O'Neill didn't have it, Bruno Lage didn't have it. So, I'm really hoping that we can continue building. And if Vitor can get the mentality right, then I think he deserves a lot of praise. If he can make sure these players do not, go on the beach between now and the end of the campaign. We've got some hard fixtures. We still have, we've got to play City and so on between now and the end of the campaign. But it'd be really, really nice if we can end the season strong and continue that into next season as well. Matt Hardiman, would Neves get into this midfield ahead of Gomez and Andre Fin?
Oh, these are horrible questions. Neves gets into any Wolves team ever. I'm way too sentimental on this Nuno era. I think I've established here. But oh my God, where though? Which one do you? He obviously a Neves Gomez combo complements better, I think, than a Neves Andre. However, will Andre go on to have a better career? Probably.
It's hard. I think it's the balance. It's the balance
of
the players.
I think I'd put Ruben in there at the moment. Peak Neves would go in at the moment, but I think Andre will possibly achieve more, especially if Neves stays in Saudi.
I was thinking about this, before I even saw this question. I thought, what if there's a world where Ruben rejoins us? We spend a chunk of the Cunha money on bringing him back. But
wait, Neves and Gomez played together, didn't they? I'm acting as if it's like, they would have done anyway. Yeah,
it was mainly Lamina and Neves, wasn't it, for a big chunk? We did see a bit of João and Neves, but what do you think, Jord? Does he get back into this squad at the moment? I mean, I love Ruben, but I just don't know. I don't know if he can break up that duo at the moment.
He definitely gets back in the squad, and oh my God, I don't know.
Feels like I'm cheating on him.
I think I want to see another like a full season of Andre and Gomez together. As in next season, if we can keep them both. I think Andre and Gomez as a pair will be seen as a better pair than Neves and Matinho.
Wow.
That's my hot take. Because I think they complement each other better. And I think Neves and Matinho were unbelievable and legend. Like, it sounds like I'm shitting on them a bit. I'm really not. But there was games with Neves and Matinho where I felt like we got bullied. Watford, Huddersfield even, to say the least. Whereas I actually think Andre and Gomez can compete and can compete in those sort of physical dogfights as well. I just think as a pair, those two together will be better than those two. I just think if you have Neves, Andre and Gomez as a midfield three, as good as it is, there's no pace in that midfield three. Yeah. It's a bit flat as a three. I don't know. Can we move on? I don't want to. I hate sitting on the fence as well. I just don't know. I'm sort of in. I don't know. I love.
I don't think he does. I would not break up that midfield.
You know what? No, I don't think I'd break the two up at the minute. I don't. It'd take a lot for me to break them two up, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say no,
maybe it's just recency bias, but I don't know. Yeah, I love Neves, but I just don't know either. But I'd probably say no. He probably wouldn't get ahead of them at the moment.
Yeah, if you've got a gun to it, I'm saying no.
Yeah. Andy Hitkins, which of any of these Wolves players out on loan should be integrated into the first team squad for next season? Fabio Silva, Hugo Bueno, or Chiquinho? Now, I don't think Chiquinho does. Unfortunately, I just don't think he's as good as people have made out, especially you can see his lack of game time this season. Fabio, I just don't, as much as I'd love him to, I don't think he will, unless Vitor could somehow get a remontada out of him. But I think, again, he would need to sign a new deal for him to stay because he'll be going into his last year of his deal. Hugo Bueno's an interesting one. Finn, I mentioned this before. I mean, there's a lot of talk that Cunha will obviously go, and Aït-Nouri is like the most obvious other player that will go. But I think there's a world where Aït-Nouri stays and we cash in on Hugo Bueno, because I think if Final continue to do okay in European football, his value is going to shoot up. And it's an FFP dream if he goes for a decent amount of money. So, I mean, out of the three, I wouldn't surprise me if there's a world next season where all three of them have been moved on in the summer.
Yeah, the last thing I heard about Chiquinho was that he was hardly getting a kick, but we couldn't recall him, was it, or something? Because he played for the Max Matter club.
Well, if we recalled him, he would have had to stay at Wolves. We couldn't have loaned him back out, yeah.
And I haven't seen anything since then, so I imagine it stayed in the same vein. But yeah, I haven't really kept an eye. Fabio's been ticking along, hasn't he? And I think it probably is one too many now of, oh no, this time it might be different. I think if I was him, I'd be like, no, just get me out. Ironically, I think he'd probably have the best chance. You know, it's the sort of Portuguese manager back. Would there be something there? But Strand Larsen, are we ever going to play two up front? And Strand Larsen's probably got that shirt. So yeah, as you say, he's probably gone. And I prefer Aït-Nouri to Hugo Bueno. I'm not mad if either one of them are starting left wing back next year. However, I do see your point. Whether FFP is going to be as much of a problem for us if it's not just the sort of, we don't want to spend that much. It depends what's more of the problem, doesn't it? If it's, we're well clear on FFP, but we've only got a budget of 30 mil plus sales, or even just the sales that we make like it was last year, or even minus, like it has been the last few years. Yeah, the Bueno FFP effect doesn't really kick in as much. I don't know where we stand on FFP at the moment, so it's a great shout on it. Was it on Wednesday you had the discussion? I hadn't thought about it.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it. Yeah.
So either way, I'm happy with that one. Or you could see a world where both go and we bring in someone new. And I'd lean towards one in Aït-Nouri to start, but I think he's a more realistic sale, probably Aït-Nouri than Hugo. But as you say, if they go another round or two and catches someone's eye, then you never know.
Yeah, Chiquinho, for what it's worth, he's only played one full 90 this season, and that was for Wolves in the EFL Cup at the start of the season. He's been on the bench pretty much every week for Mallorca, but not getting a kick. He's not played since the 2nd of Jan, but he has been on the bench every other game since. He actually played 6 minutes for us against Arsenal on the opening day as well.
So he hasn't come off the bench since Jan, did you say, or he hasn't started since Jan?
He hasn't come off the bench since Jan. He's just been sat on the bench. Yeah, he's been basically his last two appearances were the 2nd of Jan and the 1st of Feb, sorry, and the 6th of December, and he must have come on in like the 90th minute because he's got 1 minute to his name. Yeah. So
I hate to say I said it a while ago, but he's the Portuguese Jordan Graham.
Yeah, Jordan Graham. What do you think of those three, Jordan? Are you the same sort of? Do you see a future for any of them?
Just sell them all.
Hugo as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think we get good money for him from an FFP point of view, and Fabio just has had enough chances. He don't really want to be here. He's done quite well out at Las Palmas. I think if we're going to ever get any money back for him, it's this summer. But I shared that thing with you earlier, Dave, where actually statistically he's got very similar profile of Liam Delap, pretty much in every metric. So, and from this, like comparing both their seasons, one being La Liga, one being the Prem, literally in every percentile are pretty much identical. So if Liam Delap's going for 40 million, maybe Fabio Silva was a 40 million pound striker after all, or close to.
And another comment as well, Davey Hop on Twitter. It was imagine a world if Jurgen Strand Larsen got the top goal scorer award and Andre got the Player of the Year award on the last game of the season. How much of a meltdown would Matheus Cunha have? Probably a shoe for both. Probably about 3 weeks ago. But Jurgen's just behind him now. I think Cunha's just ahead still on goals, isn't he, by a couple? But Player of the Month award. I mean, if the fans are choosing, it may well go to someone like Andre. To be honest, too.
Yeah.
I saw some tweets, by the way, comparing him. They were from January. Shouts of Carl Henry comparisons. So I'm sure those fans now are certainly eating their words.
Me and Joe got dogs abuse in October, saying, "Oh, you only like him because he's a shiny new toy. Tommy Doyle's better." I'm like, I
saw someone go mad about the Tommy Doyle thing the other day as well. I was like, in what planet is he getting into this squad at the moment?
He's just not going to get any minutes, and I think he's a shoe-in. If Sheffield United come up, Chris Wilder's going to put 10 million quid on him and come and get him. And fair play to him. So I'd really like Tommy Doyle. He's just not at the level, and that's no disgrace. We just said Neves probably may not be able to replace these two. But it's not crazy to me though to think that, or to say that Andre has been our best player, is our player of the season.
No, I agree. Yeah.
He's won player of the month for the last 3 months in a row, has he, or 2 months in a row? The Wolves
won it in Jan.
I think he's won February and March because I'm sure he's got
March.
I think he might have won December as well. I think he might have won 3 out of the last 4.
Did Bellegarde get nominated for League?
He
Player of the Month,
but he didn't win the Wolves one.
He didn't win the Wolves one, yeah.
Well,
so I'd like it's not going to be a disgrace or like a robbery if Andre or Gomez won Player of the Season for me over Cunha. Surely not.
No.
Maybe 3 months ago, yeah, but not now.
Yeah, I was just seeing Andre won it in March. Can't see who won the other one. Bellegarde won the Wolves one in Feb actually.
Okay.
Yeah, Andre won it in September. So yeah, I mean he's won a few anyway. So I mean if you go by those awards, Andre is probably the front runner to be fair. So I assume Jorgen. Well, I suppose we're still early in April at the moment, aren't we? But Jorgen's got a chance of maybe winning this one. Yeah, but lads, it's been a pleasure. We'll leave it there. It's been just over an hour, so yeah, Wolves pretty much safe now. Another big win, 4 unbeaten. We look ahead now to the game against Spurs on Sunday, which will have all the content out for this week as well. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're watching on Apple or listening, on Apple or Spotify, make sure you leave us a 5-star rating. As always, we're at Talking Wolves everywhere. I'll make sure I leave the links for the other boys in the description as well down below. And until then, enjoy the weather, enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers, guys.